our 7-minute interviews for iConiCon 2021. So today we're going to be talking about Skyrim, Bloodsucking Fiends, a book by Christopher Moore, and then The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. So to get started, Austin is going to talk to us a little bit about Skyrim, and his first question is, why Skyrim? What's your favorite thing about it? Why is it a game you love?
That is a great question. I actually, before we started, I pulled out the physical copy of the game that I bought back when the game first came out. But I think it's one of my favorite games, just because, and I think this also has led me into enjoying D&D a lot. Actually, is just because I can kind of do whatever I want, and there's still some sort of a guide or a road to kind of follow through within the game. So it gives a little bit of structure, but I can fool around and kind of do whatever I want and have like a fantasy experience that I can just kind of be whatever and do whatever. And it's a lot of fun.
What's your favorite aspect of like the world part of it? So the fantasy world of it.
My favorite aspect of the game. Let's see. I really like a certain, I don't know how detailed I want to go about the game. The Dark Brotherhood is definitely my favorite thing about the game, period. You can just become an assassin, which is a little aggressive, but it's just kind of cool. You get to kind of look like a really cool person and just kind of go around the entire world and explore it. I think one of my favorite things that I would do is I would mod the game and make it look really, really nice. In addition to, one of the things you can do is fast travel, and I would disable that. So I kind of forced myself to walk through the whole world and experience that, which was really cool. I remember their whole like tagline with Skyrim was like, "Oh, you see that mountain all the way over there? You can go there." Like that was their whole thing, is everything that you saw in the game you could go and experience it. So I think that was my favorite.
Favorite NPC, so favorite non-playable character.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I would say everybody's. Oh God, is it Talia? What's her name? I don't know if you guys have both played Skyrim, so you can help me out here. I think no. Oh God, is it? Hold on, I'm gonna look really good. I need to know, because that's my least favorite. That's my least favorite. Is hold on, I'm 100% butchering her name too. Oh no, I was right. It's Talia. Wow, look at me. I think. I'm so sorry. Yeah, she's a follower in Skyrim, and she's obnoxious. And every 5 minutes, she asks if she can hold stuff for you or to do things. And she's very obnoxious. That would be my least favorite character, which I know was not your question. But
a good question.
I don't know. I also enjoy. Hold on, is it? Yes, there. I wanted to like the. I just like the Jarl of Winterhold. He's like the first guy that you meet outside of like the small town that you go through. And he's like your first main quest. And he's also just he's like a drunk. He's not actually, but that's the vibe he gives off. And he's just kind of funny.
Speaking of quests, do you have a favorite quest?
Well, I think I have actually only played the main quest one time. And then every other time I just went and joined the Dark Brotherhood. I won't say why the game's been out for like a decade now, but they have the mother quest in the Dark Brotherhood, which is basically like transporting a mummified person in a sarcophagus, and a lot of fun things happen during that. And I think that's probably one of my favorite quests. Plus, you have, never mind, I changed my NPC. I'm sorry, I have to change my NPC. It's why can I never make that? I haven't played the game in a while, which is unfortunate, but hold on, I got it. I forget his name. It is Cicero. He is the jester in the Dark Brotherhood, and he is psycho. And he's got the most obnoxious voice, but he is hilarious. So I changed my favorite NPC to him. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So you talked a little bit about how playing Skyrim got you into playing D&D. Has it been like a gateway to anything else for you?
I think like I've always enjoyed that category of just like fiction in general. But Skyrim was the first time that I could like, because I read a bunch of books growing up that were in that style. But to be able to go and play it was allowed me to like open my mind to doing other things like D&D, for instance. I think it was D&D would definitely be like the biggest one that I was able to get into.
Um, how many times have you played through Skyrim? Or like playing?
I have like 160 hours in a game. Um,
Nice.
which there could definitely be more if I every time I would play it, I would play through the game just to do like the beginning portion, make my character, go join the Dark Brotherhood, play for a very long time, and then I would like restart. And so I've probably made like 20 plus characters at this point because I would just like, okay, I want to do it again, and I would just go back and play the Dark Brotherhood again. So I feel like there's still probably a lot of Skyrim that I have not actually explored and played. Um, but I have definitely played it a bunch of times.
All right, last question for you. Why should people play Skyrim?
I just think it's a great game that you can, like I was saying at the beginning, or you can just kind of go do whatever you want, and it's just I mean it's a great experience. There's a lot of content within it, and it's really fun. I remember um, the reason I pulled out the game is because I was thinking about the first time I played Skyrim was just it was very surprising to me because it was such a cool game because I remember coming home after buying it and playing the game and just sitting there like watching the 7-minute intro cutscene, which I have since modded to remove entirely because it's brutal. But it was at the time, the first time playing through, I was like just super involved in the game. It's one that I could just sit down and play and it'd be like 8 hours and I would be like, oh, okay. Like that's a lot. But it was great.
Awesome, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Bloodsucking Fiends.
Yes.
Yeah, Bridget talking about that. It's Christopher Moore is the author.
Mhm.
Right. So why did you choose to talk about Bloodsucking Fiends with by Christopher Moore?
Oh, Bloodsucking Fiends by Christopher Moore was actually the first book that I read from the full adult section of the bookstore. Before that, I was mainly focusing on the young adult books, but the cover fit very, very much in with the books that I was familiar with, so I saw it as a non-threatening book to start my adult reading journey with.
Cool. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the, I guess, world that's in this book, the world that the author created?
So it's actually based in San Francisco. And while I'm not super familiar with San Francisco itself, I've only been to the airport once. The author doesn't really make it seem not believable. Like he talks about like different streets and stuff that I have no idea if they're actually streets in San Francisco, but he doesn't really bend the boundaries of the world itself, aside from the vampires.
All right. Do you have a favorite character?
Yes, Jody. She's actually the main character in the book. She's at the very beginning of the book. You learn that in the past she's been more kind of quelched by other people in her life and didn't really have the room or the inner strength to speak out and really be heard by other people. And then once she is turned, then she's like, you know what, let's go for it. And she really is able to find herself and be happy and live her life how she wants to live.
least favorite character, since we went down that route with the last one?
Clint. Clint is one of the guys who ends up in the gang with, he's a sub character in a group with the minion that Jodie picks to be like her main minion daywalking person. So Clint is friends with him. But Clint is just, he's not a fun guy. He really just has a dislike for vampires, anything vampire related. He kind of goes along with things just because he sees it as the least of the evils at the time, but he's I don't want to spoil anything, but I really didn't like him in book 2 either.
Right, so it is a series then.
Yes. So even though Christopher Moore encourages people to read any of his books in any order they really please to, there are technically 2 sequels to Bloodsucking Fiends. The first sequel is You Suck, and the finale of the trilogy is Bite Me.
All right. Is there a favorite, without giving away too much, is there a favorite plot point that you really like about the series?
Yes. So I think my favorite plot point is at the very beginning in Bloodsucking Fiends, probably halfway through chapter 1 is when Jodie is turned, and she doesn't know what's going on. Like, she didn't get turned and then like get left a note that's like, by the way, you're a vampire now. Here's what you can and can't do. So when she really starts to explore what it means to be a vampire, that's probably my favorite plot point, because she's just like, let's read anything that has vampires in it and then try it.
So Christopher Moore's vampires, I guess, what kind of vampires are they?
They're pretty much your traditional vampire. They're not sparkling in the sunlight. They do, as soon as sundown hits each day, they just go comatose, and then they wake up refreshed and everything when the sun rises, or I said that backwards. When sunrise hits in the morning, they just go comatose, and then when the sun sets in the evening, then they just wake up refreshed, ready to go, which is part of why Jodie gets a minion who is a human, because in order to access all of the resources that she needs in the book, she needs someone that can do her bidding during the day.
What's your favorite aspect of the world that's been built, just in general, in this story?
I guess the fact that Christopher Moore really stuck to more traditional vampire lore, as far as like building, like having the vampires function, like they need to drink blood to survive. If they go a long time without it, then they kind of wither up. And that there's a few, Jodie's not the only vampire in the book, but there's some vampire skills that a lot of stories include with vampires that Jodie has to kind of work to figure out how to do. It's not just like, you're a vampire, you can do everything. It's almost like mastering a craft of something.
All right, last question. Why should people pick up Bloodsucking Fiends?
Because it is a fantastically sarcastic and humorous book. It's a love story. It really is. I don't know if you can see on there, but it does say a love story. But it's just a really fun read.
Very cool. All right, so I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to talk about the chilling adventures of Sabrina. I'm going to give you two the opportunity to ask me questions.
Ooh. Well, who's your favorite character?
I would have to say either Rosalind or Theo. I know that there are more of like secondary characters, but I think they have really good character development. Theo in particular, I like the fact that Theo is like a trans character. It really explores like gender identity, but also like what would be considered like a non-traditional romance, both because it is a same gendered romance, but also because there's a hobgoblin involved, which is kind of interesting. And I think the character development around learning that Theo's grandmother was essentially like a monster hunter, and really exploring that identity and coming to terms with some of the prejudice that comes with that in relation to their friendships. And then Rosalind, I think, just getting to see the character development from losing sight to regaining sight to developing this almost extra sense in the cunning is pretty cool. Yeah.
So, who is your least favorite character?
I think it's got to be Father Blackwood. He's an all right villain, but I don't know that he was my favorite villain. And I don't know. He like throughout the series, throughout the 4 parts, I don't know if he ever really develops positively or negatively. And I don't know. He just like he kind of feels like a lazy character to me. If that makes sense. Like I feel like they could have done a lot more with him.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about the I believe it was a Christmas special?
I'm trying to remember because I feel like I didn't watch it right away. I know that it was pretty controversial, but off the top of my head, so I'm not sure if I actually watched it all the way through, or maybe I just put it out of my head because it didn't feel like it fit. So I don't really have a good answer for that one. I'm a terrible panelist.
Who do you think's the strongest witch?
Oh, I mean, a number would argue that it's Sabrina because she's a morning star and has that infernal power. I actually might have to say Hilda. I think she's subtly strong, and I think a lot of her power comes from her outlook and her attitude. And I think we don't necessarily get to see it as much because she's less about her, like she's not quite as dependent on her magic to solve problems. And I think because she maintains such a positive outlook throughout the entire series, just kind of in general, I think she feels less of a need to utilize it in ways that we see other witches use their powers. But I think she's got more power in her than I think people would give her credit for.
How did you feel about the what were they called? The things at the end, the darknesses and the
Eldritch Terrors.
Yes. How did you feel about the Eldritch Terrors?
You know, I like the concept. I honestly think they could have taken longer and really explored them more because it felt like they were an almost baddie of the week, which is fine. But I think when we're talking about like Eldritch Terrors, I think they deserve more time to resolve. Some of them got a little more time than others. Some of them it didn't take long for them to resolve at all. I know some of that had to do with it being a short series, but I think if it were given more time, those could have been like really robust. You could almost have done entire seasons related to just one Eldritch Terror. Yeah, I know that they were given the appropriate amount of time, which I think left some of them feeling kind of cheesy. Yeah, all in all, I think the whole series needed more time.
That's fair.
All right, I'm going to answer my last question that I gave you all: why people should check out The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. It is a great dark fantasy. It's a great twist to the old Sabrina from the 80s and 90s. It's definitely leans more into the horror aspects of it. For the most part, I don't think it goes too far. It's like something you watch with older kids, maybe not little ones. And all around, it has some really good story to it, and I think it tackles some pretty big issues that we're seeing kind of right now happening in society. And it has like a really cool aesthetic and vibe. The director does really great things, focusing in on some subtle mood and shift changes. So if you're really into cinematography, I think Sabrina is a great case study and just looking at how you can set the mood by subtle shifts in colors, intonation, and lighting. Yeah. So I want to thank both Austin and Bridget for joining me. Both of you all for joining me, and I thank you all for watching this iConiCon 7-minute interviews on fantasy topics, Skyrim, Bloodsucking Fiends, and the chilling adventures of Sabrina. I know for a fact that we have copies of the comic for Chilling Adventures of Sabrina in the Suffolk Public Library's collection. So feel free to browse our collection. If you're interested in checking out the Christopher Moore books, go ahead and check out our catalog. If we don't have something that you want, feel free to request it and we'll either look at purchasing it or borrowing it from another library. Be sure to continue to tune in for more of our iConiCon activities. We'll be wrapping up here tomorrow on Friday with some pretty awesome crafts, as well as our lives and libations event if you'd like to challenge a troll. But definitely check out our Facebook and keep posted on our YouTube for when we post some new videos. And I hope you enjoy what we've got going on.